Reflecting on the events of the last month or two, I was trying to think about what direction I could take the channel other than continual updates in Venezuela and Antarctica. We had for a while talked about psychological operations, and I was going through some old notes and talking with some old friends, and I had an epiphany. We need this guy to win. And I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds absolutely mind-bendingly insane, but you have to stick with me on this. We've made the allegation the system as it is untenable. The system as currently constituted cannot be trusted, and it can't serve the American people the way it was intended to. If any of our people, good people, decent people, moral people, were to somehow get elected within this system, it would do more damage to us than it would to them. And this guy said something about 7 years ago that I'm going to share with you today that proves my point. The election of this guy to the presidency would be the best thing for patriots all across the country. Now, stick with me on this. One of the big mistakes that North Americans make, and it just goes to culture, about understanding the difference between left and right in North America and left and right in South America, has to do with one of the things that can describe it is the attitude towards weapons. The left in South America has absolutely no part of its group that is anti-gun. In fact, they are some of the most heavily armed, well-trained owners of weapons in the whole world. Everybody is armed down here, regardless of whether there's bans on this or bans on that. It's not something that anyone has. No, you will never talk to a South American who says, yeah, we should just ban all guns and take them away from everybody. You'll never hear that. Now, what did Biden say years ago? Here's a clip from that, and I'm sure a lot of you remember this. This was his little spiel on guns. This is, I think, this was actually post Parkland, Sandy Hook. This is February 2013. And he's talking to, this is Parents Something Magazine, the interviewer over here. I'm going to play this small clip for you.
If you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun. Have the shells, a 12-gauge shotgun. And I promise you, as I told my wife, we live in an area that's wooded and somewhat secluded. I said, Jill, if there's ever a problem, just walk out on the balcony here or walk out, put that double-barrel shotgun and fire 2 blasts outside the house.
Okay, so you get the idea. Now, strangely enough, some years later, this series came out on Hulu. And this is a very lefty, super left series called The Handmaid's Tale. And I forget what season this was. And it absolutely stunned me when I watched it. This chick, she's gone through some very bad things in her life. And she has decided a way to solve that problem is to pick up this weapon, load it, and not only does she do that, she levels it at the head of 2 people who've done her wrong. And given this distance, she would have more than likely ended them both with 1 shot. And in our current system, right now, regardless of what those 2 people had done, at least based in the story, she would go to jail for a very, very long time for murder. And it was stunning to me that the left would have allowed this. And in the upcoming previews of the new seasons, they're laying on the gunplay like nobody's business. So it's a shift that I was reporting in psychological operations training that we were seeing, that the left, part of the left in North America is starting to mimic the left in South America. They've always believed this is the way to solve problems. Now, I personally believe that Joe Biden was describing overkill. He said you needed a double barrel shotgun. Personally, I think one barrel is plenty. In fact, here's a great option. Kalashnikov USA KS-12 semi-automatic shotgun, 12 gauge, 18.25 inch barrel, 3-inch chamber, 10 rounds collapsible stock for the bargain low price of $795.68 at cheaperthandirt.com. I promise you, and I agree with Joe Biden. Even with my single barrel shotgun right here, if anybody walked into my home in the middle of the night and I had my choice of different loads, some combination of slugs and buckshot, it would be very unlikely they would win. I don't care if they were carrying the evil, terrible, horrible, scary AR-15. I'll take this close quarters versus an AR-15 any day. And those of you who've used these types of weapons know exactly why and what I'm talking about. Now, here is something that not a lot of people have thought about. We know that the president from 2008 and 2016 can't, at this point, be anywhere in the line of succession. However, that doesn't mean he can't be brought on as a czar or as a national security advisor. See, everybody's been real circumspect about who everyone else's running mate might be. I could definitely see Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard getting together at some point, because I think their stars are aligned somewhat. She endorsed him in the last election. But what if Joe decided to bring the Obamas back into the White House, into positions that don't need Congress's approval, meaning it would neuter the Senate? And there are many positions, especially, with the whole issue with the coronavirus, could bring him in as a healthcare czar, given that he was the architect of Obamacare. And he would just serve at, quote unquote, the president's pleasure. And you know what the media would do. You absolutely know what the corrupt media would do. They wouldn't care who the actual president was. They'd be interviewing Big Mike and his husband, Barack, about everything. And the current president has now laid the groundwork, given the past issue with impeachment, that as long as the president has it in his mind that it's good for the country to do, or that he's trying to protect the country, he can do anything. You see, his whole idea was that he was trying to get Biden's son investigated over in the Ukraine. And whether that was moral or not, or whether it was an abuse of power or not, whether abuse of power is a felony or not. Okay, now that it's established that abuse of power isn't a crime and not impeachable, Katie bar the door for the next guy. Katie bar the door for the next president. And if it's Joe, if it's Uncle Joe, you could see the Obamas take control of this country in an unaccountable way for a very long time with the help of the media. Because they're going to do nothing but sing the praises of them. And they're going to, every time somebody takes them to task, they're going to cite the Trump administration. Say, Trump did this, Trump did that, Trump did the other, Trump appointed this person, and this person. And while we thought they were immoral, there's nothing criminal about being immoral, so therefore, it's okay now. And this is what I think they're angling for. And why they want to put this guy in power. So like I said, guys like Adam Kokesh from the Libertarian Party, even Tulsi to some extent, would get too tarnished, would get too slimed by achieving power in this corrupt system. It wouldn't be a sign of change until we burn down the system. Until we get rid of all R, parentheses R, all parentheses D. And somebody figures out a way to use the non-delegation doctrine to get rid of the concept that Republicans and Democrats choose their own electors to send to the Electoral College meeting, even though the Constitution says that it's the purview of the state legislature to do that. Non-delegation doctrine prohibits the state legislatures of all 50 states from delegating that authority to the parties. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. It would last about 5 seconds in front of a judge. But nobody's going to do it because nobody has a vested interest in doing it. There are two groups of people. One group that wants the Electoral College to stay just like it is, so they're not going to bring up the non-delegation doctrine. And then you have another group of people that wants the Electoral College completely done away with, under all circumstances, so they're not going to bring up the non-delegation doctrine. Because it leaves the Electoral College in place, it just makes people adhere to the Constitution, saying, okay, we need to take the authority of elector choosing back away from the parties and put it back in the hands of the state legislature because they're not allowed to delegate that authority. That's, of course, kind of a side argument. You can read about Neil Gorsuch, appointee of the current leader, who used the non-delegation doctrine to help, I'm not going to mention what he did as a crime, but it's about as bad as you can imagine, walk free. And just look up Neil Gorsuch and his wiki or the non-delegation doctrine. This is why we need this guy to win. We need this guy to win to prove the point. To prove the point, to draw the line, to take a line that's kind of been scribbled in with pencil and go over it with Sharpie. Permanent line. There's them and there's us. There's them and their corrupt system, and then there's the rest of us over here. So I'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.